Kyra and welcome back to our channel. So for this video I wanted to come to you guys and share with you all my favorite go-to holy grail makeup brushes. And most of these brushes are affordable. They're super cheap, and you guys know Alisha and I are all about being on a budget. So I figured I'd come to you guys and share with you all the brushes that I am always reaching for. I know that in most of my makeup tutorials I typically don't share or list out the brushes that I use, and that's just because I usually will just use the same ones over and over again. So I figure why not go ahead and just dedicate a whole video to sharing the brushes that I am always using and that I have been using for years now. So for this video I will split it up into eye brushes and face brushes, and I'll also try to stay in order. So example, for my eyes I'll do my brows, then my concealer, then crease color, then the lid. Like I'll show the brushes in the order that I actually use them when I'm gonna do my makeup, if that makes sense. So to go ahead and get started, I will start with my eyes, and of course the first thing that I always do, you guys know, is my brows. And my go-to brow brush is the Anastasia Beverly Hills number 12 brow brush. You guys, I love this brush so much. It is a double-ended brush, so one end has a spoolie and the other end does have an angled tip. And I absolutely love this brush because it's very versatile. Now you can use it when you're applying powders, pomades, gels, whatever. But I also just really love it because I just think it just does a really good job of giving you a natural finish, and that's mostly in part because of the spoolie end. So it's good because whenever you're applying, your pomade or whatever, you can apply it and then stop and then blend it out with the spoolie, and then keep going with the other end and then stop and blend it out with the spoolie. And that is, to me, the best way to get that natural brow effect. I did use it today on my brows, and this brush, to me, it just really gives me that natural finish. So I always use this when applying the product into my brows. And then to clean up my brows, I always reach for the Morphe B75 liner brush. Now I don't know if this is specifically made for brows or if it's made for liner, but this brush here just has a straight flat top tip. Now I love this brush because since it is a flat top, you get a really good, precise, clean line under your brow and really cleaning it up to give you that shape that you really want. And that is a huge plus about this brush. Also, the bristles on this brush are extremely thin and soft, and that just does such a good job of actually cleaning off the product whenever you want to blend it into the eyelid area. So after I'm done with my brows, the next area that I apply eyeshadow to is the crease area. And I usually use the crease to kind of create that transition and then go into, more defining colors. So for my transition colors, I always reach for the same two brushes typically. One is the Morphe M330 and the other is the BH Cosmetics 101 brush. Now this brush here, the BH Cosmetics one, actually came in an eye set. I did share it with you guys in, I think, beginning of the year. I did like an affordable makeup haul, and I can't remember the name of it now, but I got this brush in one of those sets, the eyeshadow set, and this brush, you guys, is just the bomb.com. It blends out so well. The bristles are so nice and soft. I do not get any shedding or fallout, and that is perfect. And plus, y'all, this brush is really cheap. The whole set, I believe, was like 10 or 15 bucks, and that was that. I think that one came with like 5 or 7 brushes. So this brush right here was extremely cheap, and it just does a really good job of blending out transition colors. I do have the Morphe M330, and this brush right here is really good also for the crease color just because it blends it out so well. But this brush here, it's pretty fluffy. Both brushes are pretty fluffy, but this one here does have a bit of a taper towards the top. It's not super tapered, but towards the top it does have a little bit of a taper towards here, and that's really good because whenever you want to apply shadow in the crease, it's really good at really sticking the eyeshadow where you want it to be and then blending it out that way. And of course, with both these brushes I do use windshield wiper and circular motions to distribute the product evenly. And so both these brushes do a really good job of that, and they're cheap, so that's a huge plus. So after I am done applying my transition shade, I typically will go into the crease and define my crease a bit more. So recently I have been reaching for another two set of brushes for my crease shades, and that is the MAC 217 brush and the Morphe 441 brush. The Morphe 441 brush is just a typical blending brush. To me, it's a really good crease brush because of the way it's shaped. It's not too fluffy, so whenever you apply eyeshadow into the crease, it stays in the crease. It doesn't move up too high, doesn't move up too low. It literally stays right where you want it to. And sometimes that can be such a hassle. When you're applying eyeshadow and you want like a specific color right in the crease, a lot of times that color will transfer to different areas of the eye and you don't want it to. And this brush here does a really good job of just keeping it right there, right in that area. So now for the MAC 217 brush, this brush here is definitely not as fluffy as the other Morphe brush, the M41 or M440. The M441. This brush isn't as fluffy, but I love this brush because it is a bit, I don't know how to describe it, but the bristles they're flatter, if that makes sense. So whenever you turn it, the best way that I use it is I will turn it to the side and I'll apply eyeshadow that way, because to me, I love the way that the bristles are packed together and it gives you a really precise application when you turn to the side. And because the bristles are packed like this, whenever you apply it into the crease, it just gives you that precise eyeshadow, you know, definition that you really, really want in the crease area. I know I have been looking at this brush for a while and it took me forever to buy it, but once I bought it, I was like, yeah, nothing else compares to this one, y'all. It really is just the bomb. I can't get over it. So this one right here is really, really good. So once I've applied the transition shade and the crease color, I'll move on to the lid. And my go-to lid brush is actually an old brush that I bought a while ago from Coastal Scents. And it's a Coastal Scents BRC S20 brush. If you guys know Coastal Scents, their brushes are extremely cheap. I'm pretty sure this brush, when I bought it, probably like $2 or $3. This brush, I just love it. The bristles are synthetic, but I love it because it's very compact and small. Now, one thing about me is that I prefer lid brushes that are definitely firmer, because whenever I typically will use a fluffier brush for the lid, I just don't get the same color payoff. So I prefer a brush that is a little denser, and this brush right here is pretty dense. So of course, when I'm applying an eyeshadow, you know, if it's metallic, I'll spray it with Fix Plus, dip in the shadow, and then pack the eyeshadow on. And this brush here does a really good job of packing on eyeshadow, and it's really giving you that good color payoff and pigmentation that you'd want. And then after I've done the transition, the crease, the lid, then I go down to the under eye area or the inner corner. So my inner corner brush is also Coastal Scents. It's the Coastal Scents BRC SO1. And this brush here is just a very tiny, small smudge brush. Typically, I'll use it for applying color in my inner corner. And I love this brush for that because, as you can see, it is very, very small and compact. And of course, in the inner corner, you want something that's really small to really apply the eyeshadow exactly where you want it to be, to give you, you know, that brightness and that glow that you want in the inner corner. And so this brush here does a really good job of that. So after we've done the inner corner, we will move on to the under eye area, the waterline area, and that is where these two brushes come in. These two brushes are basically the same brush. I'm just showing them because I reach for them all the time. Whenever one's dirty, I use the other one. This one right here is the BH Cosmetics 105 brush, and I also have the Morphe M431 brush. Like I said, both of these brushes are the exact same. They're both basically tapered pencil brushes, the exact same type of bristle hairs, and they're both really cheap. They do a really good job of blending out or applying and blending out eyeshadow under the eye and the waterline area. Of course, when you want a smoky eye or you want us to add some kind of color under the eye, both of these brushes do a really, really good job of that. This BH Cosmetics brush, I do not believe it's sold separately. I did purchase it in the same set, actually, that I got the BH Cosmetics 101 brush. So both of these come in the same set. Y'all, don't sleep on affordable brands. I'm telling you, do not sleep on brands like Morphe and BH Cosmetics, because even though they're cheap, like, they're really good quality and they'll last you a really long time. So that is the eyes. Now moving on to the face area. Once we have our eyes done, of course, the first step is foundation. Well, primer and then foundation. So for foundation, I typically will reach for either one of these brushes. This brush here is the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush. I've been using this one for years now. This one will never get old. I'm sure you guys know how good this one is. If you haven't tried it, go to Ulta, pick it up. It's the bomb. It does a really good job of smoothing out or blending out foundation and then giving you that very flawless finish. This one's the bomb. And then I also have this brush from Coastal Scents. Again, cheap. This is a brush I've actually had for years now also. And it is the Coastal Scents BR110 brush, and it is just a regular flat top kabuki brush. Now, I love this brush, especially when I'm applying foundations that are of thicker consistency. So for example, whenever I'm applying my MAC Studio Fix Fluid foundation, I always use this brush typically. I think this brush just does a really good job of buffing out thicker foundations. It is a pretty sturdy brush, but I love it because the bristles are not, they're not hard or stiff, if that makes sense. So the brush itself is pretty sturdy because there are a lot of bristles packed into this kabuki brush, but the bristles themselves are not hard at all, and that is what helps you achieve that very flawless finish. So after we've done foundation and then of course a powder concealer, then I will just go ahead and apply my powder. For my powder, I always, in all my videos, I always use this Coastal Scents brush. It is the BRC S27. It's a large fluffy powder brush. So I use this one all the time for my powder. I always use it. This brush here just gives me a really nice, even powder application. And it's just a really cheap, good brush. And then after I've done my powder, then of course it's time to bronze and highlight and apply blush and all that. So for my bronzer, as you guys have probably noticed, I have been using this brush here to, and sorry guys, it's a little bit dirty, but I have been using this brush here to apply bronzer around the rim of my face, and that is the Beauty Cosmetics 124 brush. Now this brush here actually came in a set, not the same set as the other two eyeshadow brushes. This one came in a face brush set. I bronze typically around my forehead and the cheek area before I contour, and this brush here just does a really good job of lightly applying powder in those areas. And so for me, I don't want a really heavy bronzer. I prefer like a more natural finish, and this brush here definitely gives me that natural finish. To contour, y'all know I always use the MAC 109 brush. This brush I have been using since I got it, and this brush is the only thing I use for my contour area. I just love this brush. It is pricier than most of my other brushes, but I think this MAC 109 brush is definitely worth the money because the contour that it gives you guys is just, I just love it. So this brush here, it is a bit smaller. It's not a very big fluffy brush. It's not an angled brush either, as you can see. It's a pretty flat top brush, but I love it because as you guys can see, it is pretty small and dense. And so whenever I'm applying my foundation, it does a really good job of getting right there in the cheekbone area. So whenever I apply it, I will just stick it right in the area where the cheekbone starts, and then, you know, apply my contour powder that way. And as you guys can see, it gives a very nice, precise contour without it being too muddy or too cakey or just, you know, just bringing it down too far and looking a mess. This brush here just works perfectly. I've been loving this brush, and I think it's the best contour brush that I've ever used. So after I apply my contour to my cheekbones and around my forehead, I then go in and contour my nose. Now that brush that I do use for contouring my cheekbone area, it is a bit too fluffy and a bit too big to contour my nose the way that I like it to. So I always reach for this brush here. And it is the contour brush by SONIA KASHUK. I got it at Target. I believe it was like 15 bucks. But this brush here, you guys know I love this brush for contouring my nose. It is a very dense and compact brush, and I love how small it is, and I just love how sharp the edges are because it really gives you that precise line along the bridge of your nose, at least that I like. This brush here does such a good job applying your nose contour. And this is the only thing I use it for, is literally just my nose contour, because it's just so bomb. That's why I love it. I did use it, of course, today, and as you can see, you know, my contour here is pretty nice and even. And also this brush does a really good job of blending out the powder also. The next one, of course, is my highlighting brush. I use the same one over and over again, and it is the Morphe M438 brush. This brush here is just a large tapered brush. I don't know what exactly this is for. I typically love to use it for applying highlighter, and that's because these bristles here are extremely soft. You guys can see they are extremely soft, but I also love the way this brush is tapered because it really gives you a very precise application on the tip of your nose, your cupid's bow area, and then also along the cheekbone. And whenever I use this brush, I typically only use the tip of it, if that makes sense. So whenever I apply highlighter to it, I typically will only touch my face using the tip of the brush. I don't, you know, use it like that because then it does get too crazy. But I just use the tip of the brush to lightly apply the highlighter, and that really gives me a nice a nice subtle glow. Lastly, whenever I'm done with everything, I always go in with my Real Techniques powder brush. This baby here is literally my go-to finishing brush. And by finishing, I mean that after I apply everything, I go over my face with it really lightly. Just kind of get rid of any cakiness, any powderiness, any excess product that's just sitting there. I go over my entire face with this brush here, and it gives a very nice finish, and also it just does a really good job of just blending everything together. As you can see, it is a much bigger brush compared to my powder brush that I use. So this brush here is a lot bigger and a lot fluffier, but it's really good to kind of just help even and clean everything up. So that is it for my go-to Holy Grail makeup brushes. As you guys can see, they are all definitely very affordable and very good quality, except the two matte brushes, but everything else is really affordable and really good quality. And just kind of see, like, you don't have to spend a ton of money to look good or to get a good application. It's just knowing the right products to get and also the right way to use them and apply your products. But honestly, you guys, you can make anything work. It's just a matter of just practicing. Hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, leave them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe if you have not already. We are so appreciative of all of our subscribers. Alisha and I, we've been saying it, that we're slowly but surely growing, and we're just so appreciative of all of you guys' love and support. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, you guys.